Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the VUU of 2021. Yay! We made it to a new year. And I want to thank you for joining us on the VUU. This is the Church of the Larger Fellowships online once a week, September through May, with a little break in there for the New Year's holidays. Online talk show where we talk about current events and current things going on in Unitarian Universalism and just, kind of whatever we can come up with. Today's episode, we have the co-hosts of the View talking about current events because there's a whole heck of a lot to talk about since 3 weeks ago when we were last with you all. So I'm Christina Rivera. I'm coming to you from Augusta County, Virginia, where it is beautiful, bright and sunny and cold. Cold, cold, cold. It is definitely winter. Winter has come. And just to make sure that I don't fall into that, I definitely have my capri pants on today, just in defiance of that winter that is outside my door. Aisha Hauser, how are you doing?
So, Chris, before I start, is it real winter or is it like 60? I mean, just to clarify, because people say, "Oh, it's winter, it's so cold," and it's like 57. I'm like, oh no,
No, no,
that's
this is now officially real winter. It's like
okay. All right.
let's see what it's yeah, it's 39.
All right, okay, it's winter. It's winter.
Yeah.
I'm Aisha Hauser, and I'm in Seattle, Washington, where it is. We also pretend to have winter. It's maybe, I don't know, in the 40s, maybe late 40s today, and we've had yes, it's Seattle. Yes, the jokes about rain, but usually it's just drizzle all year. But for the past probably almost 2 weeks, it feels like it's just been downpours. So we've had, which I never complain about rain because we need water. So that's good news, and looking forward to catching up with everyone. And it doesn't feel like 2021. I mean, I know that's what I'm writing on stuff, but it just feels like it's melding together. So apparently it's 2021. I saw that in a meme. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Quiana Dene, how's you?
I just started off with a meme. Apparently, I'm a meme, the whole I'm on mute. Sorry about that, y'all. So I'm doing actually really good. I'm here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it is 40 degrees here, which literally means we could run around in shorts. Like Chris is rocking the capris. This is full out thigh length short weather around here. I'm like, the sun is up. It's beautiful. I'm like ready to jog. Like I'm so elated at the temperature and the weather. And so this is basically, if I lived in Minnesota, this is spring for me. So I'm confused. But overall, things are good. I had a good break. I'm excited to share that with you all. And I'm excited to be re-immersed in the world that I kind of pulled back from a little bit, the political world a little bit, so I could survive. And then we can talk about how to dive back in, because it's a dive. So I'm excited to, I know that my friend Don is here, but I also want to acknowledge that Tanner is behind the camera working their magic. And we are excited and just proud to have somebody who wants us to be our best all the time. So thank you, Tanner, from the back of the house. And then I'll turn the floor over to my good friend Don.
Thank you, Quiana Dene. I'm Don Fortune. I'm here in South Jersey in a little dinky town called Egg Harbor City, which, as far as I've yet to figure out, I have not found eggs nor harbor, nor it's a city, but it's got 4,000 people. So I think that's a stretch. Anyhow, I'm here, and the weather here is in the 40s, which for New Jersey, they think it's winter, but I'm from Maine, so I've got a different idea. This is like, do I put the shorts away? Maybe, I'll be out in the shop working in a t-shirt and shorts, and that's fine. Yeah.
Dawn, I need that shirt. I need that shirt. You need to talk. I need that. Tell people what it says.
It says shenanigator, a person who instigates shenanigans. And this is one of my favorite Christmas presents. And I got it from my friend, Kathy McLean, who Quiana Dene knows from Ann Arbor. Yes, this is like one of my favorite things. It's just, yes, because, if there's shenanigans, I want to be a part of it. Oh God. So yeah, what I did over my winter vacation, like I can't even, like I hid under the couch for a couple of weeks and then there was an armed coup and I had to come back to work. And so here I am. And, there's that meme that goes around that says, it was the most American tweet ever, which was, are we supposed to be working during the coup? Right? Are we supposed to be productive? When there are, people killing Capitol Police officers? Like, yeah. So I had to come back to work, but who can be productive? So here we are. I'm glad to be here just because this is a good place to get uplifted once a week. So I'll hand it back to Christina.
Yeah, I think the co-hosts get together and right before the show and kind of recap what we're going to talk about, and we wanted to make sure that we talk obviously about our most recent current events here in the U.S. And but also the fact that we're coming to this right off of the holidays, a lot of different holidays that are celebrated, and holy time of renewal of a new year, and that there is something still holy and sacred to be celebrated in that. So I wanted to invite our co-hosts, just if you feel moved or willing or able to just share anything that either was in your life or that you saw happen out in your communities that that just struck you as memorable. Doesn't even have to be uplifting, or we're not here to to do all the bullshit uplifting stories, but
Chicken
just
soup
something
for
that struck you.
Unitarians.
Yeah, just struck
Well,
something that struck you.
and Chris, I'll be the one to start off just because it is where my heart is at. I think that one of the ways that I combat all of the stuff that's happened is to have joy in my heart and have good things to come back to. And so for me, some of the things that happened over break that were really heartwarming were folks had mailed me things, but because the mail system is so messed up, getting things much later, or one day getting something and then the next day getting something else and being like, oh, this was supposed to come a long time ago. And those kind of things became these little treasures. And that was actually a lot of joy to like every day open my door and not know what was going to be out there, or if something finally got delivered, or seeing something finally get delivered to somebody that I sent like December 12th finally came on the 27th. Like those little joys. And I think, and having moments where people reached out, I wasn't feeling well over break. And so I called on someone in the faith community that I work in, and they brought me apples, oranges, and Gatorade and cookies because that's what I needed. And, like those moments to me matter, and they are the counterbalance for the other stuff that happens. So when we got to the 6th, so by the time we got to the 6th, my heart was so full of all of these experiences. I had a counterweight, not saying I wasn't overwhelmed or disgusted or just still trying to even understand what happened, because I am, but that the counterbalance that helped me go to sleep at night, that helped me rest my spirit, to help me get up to go to work, was that there is joy in the world. And that I didn't want those folks who were in the Capitol, that I don't want President Trump, that I don't want people to steal my joy. And I can't let folks steal my joy and still do this liberation work. I can't. There can be some interplay of both, but I can't do both simultaneously, overlapping diagrams. So I would just say, is what are other things that are making you smile, that are making you laugh, that are bringing you joy? And then we can talk about the nitty gritty. I'm not saying I don't want to talk about that. I'm just saying I want to be joy filled, and then
Well, I want to continue the thread of just the joy of getting things in the mail. So 2 different friends of mine sent me this. I'm like, the joy that fills my heart is how well people I let in and are my friends know me. So I turned 50 in November, and one of my friends sent me a box of really fun stuff. But one of them was a pair of socks that said, It was a picture of a fox, Fox, and no more fox. Then another friend sent me a pin that said, no more fox. I'm like, I love how much my friends know me.
That's ridiculously funny.
Ridiculously. So I now have a pin that says no more fox to give, or no more fox. Actually, I have the pin right here. Hold on, I'm gonna get it because I give 0 fox, and the socks say the same thing. I give 0 fox. And this I'm gonna name. This is from Quiana Dene. She mailed this to me with a journal, and then I got socks, and I'm like, what touched me is like, oh, people know me so, like my friends who are in my heart. And Chris sent me you earlier, also maybe earlier in the fall, VUU, the world will adjust. I mean, and then wow, Dawn, everybody here, it's like, oh, if you come on the VUU, send me things. Dawn sent me a knife that you made. I mean, just beautiful. And it's not about the things, it's about I'm connected to you, I love you, I'm going to send you a piece of myself that speaks to you. And I think that's the part. And I will say, Christmas morning, my son, who turned 20 yesterday, wrote each of us a letter. That was his Christmas present, a letter. I know. And then I opened it. My kids always make fun of me their whole lives when I cry. I, of course, start bawling, and my daughter turns to my son and goes, I told you she was going to cry. And I'm like, how could you not cry? I mean, it was just so like, OMG. So it was very, it was just more than gold, just having people know you and love you. And that's what I want for everybody. That's why I'm in this work, right? People need to feel affirmed and loved in the fullness of who they are and how they show up. That is what drives me. And that brought me a lot of joy. And I want to thank you, Quiana Dene, because by the time we did get to the 6th, yeah, I agree. I was full of people who hold me, my community. And I miss being in your company, you being all of you. I miss the hugs.
How were your holidays, Chris? Do you celebrate holidays? I don't want to make that assumption.
Yes, we do. We celebrate Christmas and New Year's, and my sons are adults now, and so it's a new and different way of celebrating. And I'm sure that they would have wanted to been anywhere else, but celebrating New Year's Eve with their parents locked down at home. But that's where they were, and God bless them. We just made the best of it, and we made actually a couple of new Christmas and New Year's traditions for our family, kind of marking that the way we celebrate as a family can be different now. And also kept some of the old ones. So that felt good to really recognize the dynamic shift in our family. And they got here really close to Christmas, like a week before Christmas, and then we took them to college last week on the actual day of the coup. We were packing up the car and thinking about whether or not this was really a good idea to be getting in the car and taking them somewhere else. But we, had family conversations, and they want to go, and we want to support them in making their adult decisions. So that's what we did. We packed up the car and did a road trip up to Providence, which was just fascinating, to go from rural Virginia to New England, and see the transition of not seasons, but politics and people's politics, and what they were supporting and how they were supporting it. Was just fascinating. it was wild.
That's interesting to me. I think my world is such a bubble, and I haven't traveled very much. And I want to say this to be clear: folks have to make decisions for their family, and if you travel or do stuff, I don't want to imply any shame. Like, I just want to say that out loud, because everybody has to do what's right for them, and that looks different for everybody. I have chosen to stay in my little bubble. And so the furthest I've been is Detroit, between Ann Arbor and Detroit. Not saying I haven't traveled, let's keep it real. But I don't see a lot of political contrast in the places I might see a road sign and then I go, oop, I'm not stopping in this town. Your girlfriend, you do not need gas for 20 miles of this. But it's really interesting. You're right. You can literally, but you can also track. I have a poem. I'm so sporadic right now. I have a poem that says, I always like to go into a neighborhood and see what the schools look like. I can always tell if they're for detention, or if they're pre-detention, or if they're for education by the number of windows they have. And you can. And if I'm driving on a highway and I start seeing, pro-life signs and flags and eagles, I know that's somewhere I can't stop. And you're right, you can tell the political landscape, which is something Black, brown, and queer people have been doing almost their whole lives. What are the signs? Where can I be? Where is safe? Where are my safe posts? There's no candles in the window in this neighborhood. We keep going. Harriet would have said, keep going. There's not safe haven here.
Yeah. And to their credit, folks are making it really easy right now. It's pretty blatant, and I mean, we drove through towns where literally there was a bed sheet hung out that had been painted on it that said "Deplorables, let's roll." And I'm like, okay. And literally, we had gotten off the highway in order to go get gas at that exit. And I'm just like, no, let's just keep on going. Let's just keep on going, because this is not a place for me. And it's really disturbing, like the level at which evil and hate and animosity has really just reached out and blatantly become, and that was disturbing. That was distressing.
Yeah, Don. So before we get into that, because we're going to get to the 6th in a few minutes, Don, how was your vacation holiday time? Holiday.
I'm doing parish ministry. So by Christmas time, I just want to curl up and suck my thumb for a couple of weeks. And so fortunately I was able to do that because I was at empty. I was at empty by the middle of December. And so I took a couple of weeks and just didn't set an alarm and slept until I was done. And that helped. I think I finally got close to caught up on what my body needs for sleep. I don't do a lot of holidays. I mean, I live alone, right? Like my cats and my dog don't really pay attention to the calendar. Like they pay attention to the can opener. And I grew up with a kind of nutty survivalist sort of father who taught me to not fear, but be really cautious around large crowds that would make convenient targets. So historically, I don't go to New Year's things. I sort of watch them on TV and then say a prayer of thanks at 12:01. That everybody made it okay, and just because once you're sensitive to that's like being a bartender. You can never go out for a drink. You're always watching the room. So yeah, I don't do the big holiday things, and it was quiet and it was lovely. I think I still wanted one more week before I came back though. So you wanted to talk, how was your Kwanzaa? We haven't heard about your Kwanzaa. I followed you on Facebook and I watched with interest your little comments, but I'm curious how it was with your whole family, with your kids.
Yeah, so we are a polytheistic, I believe they call it, and what the REVs call it, the Revs call it, home. So we definitely celebrate Christmas because my kids are inundated with capitalistic culture. and they're into it, but they're in it for the capitalism. They're not in it for the revival, the birth of Jesus, which is fine. They understand the two.
They're mercenaries, yeah.
Yeah, and I make sure they understand that for some people it's a very different sacred space. Because we want to respect that and honor that. So we do stuff on the 25th. We had breakfast at Dad's house and watched movies, and that was actually a lot of fun. We watched The Fast and the Furious. Like, my kids are like knee deep in The Fast and Furious, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they're telling me character backstories. I'm like, this is your life now, okay. And I'm calling all of the characters by their name. So I'm like, what is Tyrese doing? What is Ludacris doing? They're like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, what's Michelle? Why is Michelle doing that? Like, as if we're like best friends. Like, me and Michelle Rodriguez just like hung out at the mall last week. And my kids are like, who are you? So we had a lot of fun that way. My kids and my co-parent entertained me. We got lumberjack, red and black lumberjack flannels, and we all wore them and took a picture together. But y'all, Abijah will be 13. I think the last time we did that, Abijah was literally a baby. And I bought us flowered matching outfits in Florida, which at that time, my co-parent, like, Abijah was a baby, so they couldn't speak up. I think my co-parent tolerated it. I'm in love in the picture. You can see, like, he's like, Abijah's like, I'm a baby, and I'm like the happiest woman in the whole world because I've got my flowered muumuu from Florida. So we tried it again, and it worked out this time. So that was actually a lot of fun. And then for Kwanzaa, so each night, Blue, Black Lives Unitarian Universalist, along with led by Team Sankofa, we had a candle lighting each night. They have a Swahili name that I just can't find in my Rolodex right now. So we did a candle lighting every night. We had an event on the last day, which is a larger celebration. It was 2 hours. It was amazing. We had 50 people each night. We have a soundtrack. We have, because we all played music during our presentation. So it was really amazing, to the point where I forgot. So I did mine. It was amazing. Like, I got to talk about Nia, which is purpose. And then y'all, I was so enthralled in Kwanzaa, every day posting my own reflections on it. I posted over 3,000 words on Facebook, which is a lot. And that, to me, it was. And then I forgot it was New Year's Eve. I was so enthralled with being in community and like really deep digging and diving in how I wanted to go about the next year. I was like, it's New Year's Eve. I'm pretty sure I did not make it to midnight. I don't even remember the day, y'all. But Kwanzaa was such a focal point and such a moment to pause and reflect and project, that it just was really beautiful. And that just wrapped my entire spirit. I just want to give a shout out to my team Sankofa. They're some of the most brilliant, amazing, intentional spirits on this planet. Like, literally, one of them could come knock on my door unmasked. I'd be like, come on in, lay your stuff down. What are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have so much love and respect for them. There's nothing they couldn't ask of me, and there's nothing we can't do together. So I'm just really proud to be a part of that community. And that really is what filled me up with joy and prepared me for the 6th. It was a spiritual preparing. So let's lean into that. So the 6th, so we all have our good days. Some of us maybe are really ready for the epiphany on the 7th. I saw a bunch of cakes and stuff. But the 6th at about noon, whose world started to change? Whose world started to look a little bit different? I'm going to let you speak first, Don, because it's a place I know you have a lot of energy. Tell me about that day. Not what you thought about that day, because somebody's going to ask you, where were you when that happened? And so we got to be ready to answer.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, before I got into this ministry gig, I was at one point in my life a reporter, and at another point in my life a political organizer. So this stuff I put on my Cheerios in the morning, you know, and so I was watching, and I'm always fascinated with the ritual of government. And anyone who says government is not church is not paying attention. But the ritual of bringing in these beautiful mahogany boxes and with the ballots in them, and it's all pomp and circumstance. And then they did the thing and people shouted and they got over it. And then they were gonna, and I was like, okay, and now they're gonna debate about Arizona. Okay, I'm gonna go, like, I made my cup of coffee, put it in my travel mug. I was gonna go out to the shop and bang on metal for the rest of the day. And then it seems that the steps of the Capitol have been breached. I said, wait, what? What just happened? What just, and like, so there I am, like in my shop clothes, all ready to go out and get grubby. And I sat back down in my chair and just like, holy cow, watched it. With, you know, keep in mind that I've got that paranoid loon father who taught me how to look at things in a way that other people don't see. And yeah, I'm not surprised that they were able to get into the chambers. I'm not surprised that it was an organized attack. I mean, anybody with an internet connection and a screen was able to know that people were organizing to do some sort of violent something on the 6th. And when was it, the FBI or somebody came out later and said, we had no information that indicated that anything was going to happen. I was like who? Like, I know 4th graders who knew about this, you know, come on. Like, the FBI cannot be that stupid unless it's intentional. So anyway, and so the thing that I was feeling that I think is an experience that's fairly common for people, those of us who were born here in the United States, was this entire disconnect, because we've been taught from little bitty, right, that this is what makes us better than other countries, is that we have this peaceful transfer of power and that we don't have armed insurrections in the Capitol. And like, suddenly those of us who are citizens are having to, for some, this is a new realization that this imperfection, this really enormous flaw. And I had a conversation this week with a friend of mine who's an immigrant to this country, who said that their partner was having that same sort of thing. Like, their partner's native born here and they're like, like, this doesn't happen here. And the other person is like, oh yeah, this happens in places. So, so again, it's one of those, like, American exceptionalism, the US, the privilege of just not being that up close and personal with hate and anger and violence. And it's impossible to ignore. And then there were so very few news outlets saying out loud what would have happened if these people were Black Lives Matter protesters. And I think Joy Reid on MSNBC put it beautifully. And she said, if these had been Black Lives Matter protesters, there would already be mass arrests, injuries, and deaths. And that was the evening of the 6th. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, it was shocking. It was jarring. It was, I have a couple of people in my congregation who were in Manhattan on 9/11. And they said it felt very much like that kind of shock, that kind of huge, like my brain just flipped the entire world upside down and I don't even know how to walk anymore, you know? And I've been seeing that sort of post-traumatic stuff come out in different ways in my local community, in my neighborhood, on the internet, and in my congregation, how people are some responding with knowledge of post-traumatic stress stuff and some just responding. So it's It was tough. And it's like 2 hours from here. Like
my mother and sister are 4 blocks away from the Capitol. That's where they live.
Are they safe? They okay?
They're fine. They're in a high rise where actually some of the senators use as a, when they're in town. Thankfully they were fine. Here's the thing. This surprise comes from white people who believe the United States to be something other than what it is. Because I'm an immigrant born in Egypt, where one of my favorite tweets coming out, and this actually came out, I want to say during the election, it wasn't even for the coup, but it's applicable for quite a while. Something like the United States would invade the United States if the United States saw what the United States was doing. Because what's happening here is what this country has done to countless other countries, Central, South America, the Middle East, any place with majority Black and brown people. The United States came in, disrupted the government, and just fucked things up because they wanted to install their own US friendly whoever. This is not a surprise. My phone blew up on Wednesday, and I mean, and I was also I was off from the CLF, but I also consult, and so I checked in on my mother and sister. I knew they were fine. They weren't going anywhere. And then I didn't want to be assaulted with what this wasn't a. First of all, the FBI knew, because and who isn't a part of this? Come on. I mean, this is where the part that I think folks are underestimating. I tweeted with a friend yesterday, and I'm like, well, the reason why they got so far is not about incompetence, is about there were Capitol Police in on it. There are FBI people in on it. And the person's like, well, I didn't see evidence of that. I'm like, see how far the white people got? Look at how far go back to any YouTube, Google what happens when Black, queer, women, brown, immigrant, poor, anybody who's not this group do any demonstration, and how armed to the teeth DC, whether it's federal or the local police. So this is bullshit. It's a bullshit thing to say. It wasn't incompetence. I refuse that nonsense. The FBI knew, they still know. And somebody had also tweeted, they know exactly who these people are. They don't need your tips. And it starts from the press. Somebody said this was a ground up. I'm like, ground where? You mean White House, the ground? Because the president of the United States has been fomenting this since 2016. So give me a break. Like I don't have capacity for the shock. I don't. And maybe I need to sound a little more pastoral. It is at this point, it's willful ignorance. It's willful ignorance to be under this presidency for this long and people be in any way shocked that there was an armed insurrection. I don't mean to be, but I mean, what were we all looking at? What were white people looking at? What were brown and Black people looking at?
So can I just say something that you just did that I've seen so many of my friends who are people of color do, which is I should be more pastoral. I shouldn't be angry. No. Anger is absolutely the reasonable response to this bullshit. And I have seen so many people say, I should be more this, I should be more that, I shouldn't hate this, I shouldn't like have white people given you a reason to not be angry lately?
No, I'm fine being angry. I just need to be more sensitive. No, I'm fine being angry. I think the part that because of my role in the CLF, and I'm a religious educator, that's the part that's like, okay, I'm angry as an immigrant, as someone who like just sees the fuck shit of this country. But the pastoral part is there are white people who've chosen willful ignorance over knowing, and I'm talking to my siblings in spirit here, the white UUs who gave Christina Rivera and Kenny Wiley and I wanted to run us out of this fucking faith because of the white supremacy teaching, and we were right. We were right. Everybody who signed on to the white supremacy teaching was right, and will continue to be right until white supremacy is taken down. That's what I'm angry about.
And Don, I appreciate you saying you have the right to be angry. And I get that, and I have the right to protect my joy, right? Like, so I can only let those voices and all of that anger consume me so much. I can only let it take me so far. And there's a part of this, like, this is the Don Lemon, like, this is y'all shit, not my shit. Pose is real. Like, some of this isn't my work. It's not my work to help, we told you the dismantling needs to happen. We told you the harm. And at this point, I'm just, as Miss Seeley says, I'm going to just sit back and see what colors end up on the wall next. So I don't have the leisure to be angry for very long. I also don't have the need to be angry very long because this isn't my problem. It's like I got to move on to other things because y'all need to check the hens in your house. Y'all need to go do a rooster check. My backyard's good. I know who my people are. I know what my faith is. I know who I can go to get help and support. I'm very secure in all of those things. I have no questions on the table. I am using my faith as a tool for liberation. And if I take Black women with me, everybody's getting free. We're leaving the gate open. So there's a part of me that's like, yes, I'm mad. Yes, I'm not surprised, but I got other shit to do because I've already told you. It's almost like I want to thank my daughter for turning me into Hoarders, the TV show. Now I'm cleaning everything and it's freaking me out. But that's a whole nother thing. But it's like Hoarders. Like I've cleaned the rooms that I need to function in. Y'all have to go clean the rooms you function in. I've done where I know I'm supposed to be. Now you go clean up your stuff because I've done my part. And then we can have a clean house together. And it does not, and to follow that, it doesn't help to have a few clean rooms if one room is dirty to make a functional home. You need all your rooms clean. So I'm gonna keep cleaning the kitchen and the bathroom because that's where my heart is at. But y'all need to go to your own private bedroom and check your bedroom. And then we can talk once we all have a clean house. That's kind of the model I'm using. And thank you, Hoarders, for giving me hoarding analogies. I appreciate you very much. And waking me up at 5 a.m. to wonder if my house is clean enough. That's a whole nother problem. But anger has its place, but also so does like the Don Lemon shrug. Right. I called it that. We're going to name that the Don Lemon shrug.
So the thing that I would like, it has been my experience in recent weeks that I have talked with people of color who seem to be stifling their own rage in an effort to not upset the white people around them. Right? And that's what I'm like, no. You get to please have a tantrum nice and loud right here. Like we're don't stifle yourself to make other people comfortable. That's not cool. So that's what I worded it not as well as I could have because no brain today. So, Christina, you were going to say something.
I think it's important to note that, you know, people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, you know, have different experiences in different settings. So I know where I'm safe to have all of the feelings and in whose presence I'm safe to have all of the feelings and experience all of the things that I need to experience. And that isn't always in, you know, under the white gaze. That sometimes just has to be in a different space, which doesn't mean that I'm stifling it or not experiencing it, you know, there. It's just it just has to be different, and in a different space. And I think one of the things that that I hear over and over again, you know, in regards to the six and in regards to white people being so surprised and so shocked and you know that this has happened, is a reiteration of, you know, white people being so shocked and surprised that cops are killing people, Black people, and just now we have it on video, right? And I think it's that learned perspective and colonized perspective and white supremacy perspective that is in all of us, that says there is this myth about how the US is supposed to be. And then there's this lived experience of how the US is, right? And we continue to hear folks and now I'm talking about within UU, we continue to hear folks who want us to quantify that lived experience because they are living the myth. Um, and being upset when Black, Indigenous people of color, people from the margins are no longer willing to quantify that lived experience. We're no longer, that's part of what the white supremacy teaching was all about, was we no longer have to prove that white supremacy culture is a thing. We're done with that. If you still need somebody to prove that to you, move aside, get onto the side of the road. Somebody may stop, somebody who's, in this crowd may stop and pull over and educate you, but we're no longer going to allow you to put a block on this road that we are going down as Unitarian Universalists. That is no longer how we're going to operate. That's over. So if that is what you are waiting for, if you're waiting for us to quantify and to prove to you that this exists, not happening. Not happening. We have lives to live. We have lives to save, right? And we have a heaven on earth to build. And we're not going to do that by quantifying to you what my lived experience and what other people's lived experience is. It's just not going to happen anymore. So I think, in terms of one of the questions that we ask is, what is our faithful experience? What is our faithful witness for what's coming up? So we had the 6th. We knew the 6th was going to happen. And now we know that the inauguration is going to happen. And we know that there is a call, to occupy, capitals and the U.S. Capitol. So, what is our faithful response to that? What does that look like? And what does that look like in the time of pandemic? Because as Aisha said, as Quiana today said, as Don said, we all knew the 6th was happening. Everybody knew it. He'd been talking about it. They'd been talking about it. Everybody knew this was happening. And now everybody knows that there's an inauguration happening.
So I was at the grocery store this morning getting extra cans of food, thinking about water, asking people, what's your safety plan? And people are looking at me and I'm like, did you miss the 6th? Like, did your life just jump over the 6th? And to come back around, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris, but I'm so like in Michigan, we had them storm the Capitol with guns as a rehearsal, as far as I'm concerned. The 6th was a rehearsal. And so for me, as I look forward to the 20th and beyond, I have to have a plan, one, to be physically safe. Physically safe. I'm a Black queer woman. Hello, I need a safety plan. And with my safety plan for my family, where do we have, I think of a lot of Octavia Butler in Parable of the Sower when Lauren talks about what's her go bag. Have you checked your seeds lately? Is the water fresh? What are your routes of transportation? Is your gas tank full? And it sounds funny, but the same people who are looking to harm us, they're that prepared. I think you have to be as prepared as your enemy. And I can't believe I just said that, but it's the truth. If doomsday folks and folks who really believe this is the revolution have prepared at they're stockpiled for a year, then we as folks who have to live through their temper tantrum, and I said that, I probably also need a year of things to make sure that we can survive their temper tantrum. And so preparedness for the 20th is real. I was supposed to have an eye appointment. I'm like, I'm not leaving my house on the 20th. There's nothing in the world that could get me to leave here. And I think that's scary for people to admit that we are in a place where we can't leave our homes, not because of COVID, not because of racism and systemic violence, but because of white terrorism on these shores, on this land, at this time, not in a history book, not somewhere else with those other people. It's right here, right now. And I think admitting that is really scary.
I'm sure it is. And I'm sure for Unitarian Universalists in particular, it is, because we so often personify ourselves as, the good ones.
Yep.
And I think that the danger, as you use right now, is just continuing to say, well, I'm a good one and that's good enough. And it's not. And We've said that it's not. And how we go about this as you use is going to depend on, what our social location is. So what I do, what Quiana does, what Aisha does, what Dawn does may be different than what other UUs do. But the question is are we asking ourselves that question, right? Like, are we asking ourselves, what does a faithful presence look like in the face of evil? Like full on evil. What does a faith, and if I can't answer that as a clergy person, if I can't answer that as a religious professional, I have no business calling myself that. So this is a shout out to all of the religious professionals who are within the range of my voice. If you cannot answer what that is for you, and you cannot answer that for the community that you are serving Unitarian Universalism in, you need to think about your call. Because this is not going away. This is not just the 6th. This is not just, what happened, the spring uprising. This is not just the resistance. This is our life's work, our vocation. So what does a faithful witness look like in the presence of evil? Because that is what we are in. And we calling it other things, trying to downplay it or soft pedal it, does not help us. It does not help us not name that there is politics, and then there is spiritual autonomy and spiritual power that we are responsible for. And we are responsible for communities who need to be able to say to themselves, the congregants in our congregation need to be able to say for themselves, what is their public witness in the face of evil? And our job is to help them with that, answer that question. So I'm asking y'all, as CLF members, as Unitarian Universalists, what is your witness? And I'm not saying everybody needs to be in the streets. I'm saying that you need to know what it is that you are going to do to combat that evil.
Thank you, Chris. That's a word this morning. The part to me that if I can wave a magic wand, I mean, there's a lot I would do. First is free Black and brown people. A, maybe C, Deary, is white UUs especially. We're now going to talk to our people, white UUs. Stop saying this isn't us. Like, if I hear fucking Biden say that one more time, I'm like, dude, even when he said the American people don't want a revolution, actually, there's several revolutions at play, bruh. And one of them is fascist, Nazi, white supremacist, and the other one's for liberation. So it's not that the American people don't want one. And so to me, the thing that I've been saying to myself as a UU and as a spiritual leader is, we are not disconnected from what's happening. So this idea, this isn't us, it is the United States. It's this is what the United States was built on. The South, and Ta-Nehisi Coates made this point, and this point was made before and has been made since. James Baldwin talked about this. The South didn't lose the Civil War. Technically, maybe, but not really, right? And James Baldwin wrote and spoke extensively about how white and Black America's destinies are intertwined. So if white America does not get its shit together, it's all going to get burned down and take everybody with it. Sure, I'm all into centering our joy, Black joy, brown joy, indigenous, we need to do what we need to do. We can't wait for white people. And at the same time, who's holding the guns in power? The part that is scary about this insurrection is how many law enforcement people are in on it. Let us not pretend that is not the case. Somebody said AOC, because I'm not watching the news, but somebody quoted AOC to me yesterday. She said, we don't know who to trust. People got into the Capitol because there were Capitol enforcement in on it. So this is the part where that is true in Egypt, where I'm from, and in other countries in Africa and Sudan, that you don't know who to trust, because the police and the army and the military are all in on maintaining the status quo. And that is now the chickens coming home to roost in the United States, is that we now have law enforcement. So that what we can do for our people is get them out of what we're exceptional at being ostriches. Let us pretend the world is different than what it is. let us spiritually say to people, we need a shared reality, white UUs, that this exceptionalism, this somehow you're going to go back to whatever reality myth that existed is not going to happen. That ship has sailed. So it is hard. For those who've had the life of privilege, who think the world is completely different, come into reality. This is what reality looks like, and it is painful. And white people have much more work to do, because Black and brown and LGBTQ and the LGBTQ community, maybe we need to do a show on this, is interesting, because there is also a white and Black and brown divide, and and I'm not part of that community, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but that's also been an interesting, watching white gay men Republican. Anyway, don't want to go off that rail, but the point is the invitation to empower and affirm for UUs that the world is very, very broken, and that stop living in an alternate reality. Stop living in an alternate reality. It is not, we're not going to fix an alternate reality. We need to fix this one.
And Aisha, thank you so much for saying that. We do need to call out our siblings in faith, as you said, and we cannot be exceptional ostriches. And as I look forward, as we have just a few more minutes left, I just want to kind of push us into what are some tools, resources, or things that folks can dip into on the 19th or the 20th, or what are some things that folks can invoke to make sure that they're, invoke in terms of being in fellowship or community, to make it past the 20th, to get to the 20th, right? I can speak and say that Blue, Black Lives Unitarian Universalist, has worship service tonight. We also have it on Sunday. If you are a person who identifies as Black, there's ways we can get that information to you to get you that link, but there's worship service. I know that Team Sankofa is holding a luncheon vibe tomorrow in that same Black sacred space. So there's some opportunities to talk about, to reflect, because it's a lot to process and to hold. Does CLF have stuff going on, or other communities celebrating stuff that maybe we can throw in the chat? Is there other ways folks are gathering and being in community care with each other?
Well, CLF has worship every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Western, Pacific. Time is not, we've been here 7.5 years. I'm still getting used to saying that, Pacific time. And you can always reach out in terms of CLF on our Facebook pages. We have several, probably hundreds of, we have a whole YouTube channel with readings and meditations, and our online platform in terms of at least the CLF. And there is along with Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, for those who identify as people of color who are not Black, non-Black, POC, there is DRUM, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. And you can also check out their website and Facebook page.
Last week, I was really privileged to attend a space, and I really wish I knew which churches were a part of that. I know Cedar Lane was a part of that. I believe Rockville, Maryland was a part of that. And it was a really beautiful space. I don't know if it's something those collaboration of churches is going to offer again, or congregations, but it was really beautiful just to be with UU folks who got it, UU folks who just were being present with each other. There was definitely a power in that, between the chalice lighting and the conversation, and just the goal of just having your spirit held, which I know is very woo-woo, but it was just nice to not have to lead for a moment. It was nice just to be held. It was nice just to be a listener. So often we as religious professionals are leading the work that I will own and say that I forget to lean in, to be in, that I need the work too. So seek out the spaces. If right now you feel like you need to have a political response, go get that. Figure that out, call somebody, pick up your phone, get on the line with your senator. If you feel like you need to have a spiritual response, work with your local brick and mortar congregation, see what work they're doing in communities of color, whether it be the quick and go like food shelf porches or extra blankets, because in some places it's actual winter, not faux winter, Chris. It's -2 and folks need sleeping bags, or, next time you order boots off, big company things, buy 2 pairs of boots, buy a men's pair of size 12s, which are hard to come by in a shelter, and drop them off somewhere. So I think there's all kinds of ways that we can respond that are regenerative for our spirit, but we have to think about them and be intentional. It's not going to be a check the box. It's not going to be a post on Facebook. You're going to have to dig into your spirit a little bit more and engage the people in your community. And to add to that, I would say know your neighbors, because if stuff goes down on the 20th, know your neighbors, knock on their door, ask them how they are. It's so critical that I know the people across the street from me, that I know the people who could help me, who I might need to help. I might need to help somebody. I'm so selfish. I would need help. No, I might need to go help somebody. And that's real. Community care and mutual aid are going to be the things that continue to save us. So engage in those, be a part of those. I want to tell this little story, and I know we're coming to an end. I'm in a different emotional, physical, spiritual, financial place than I've ever been in my life. And when my kids were here, the weekend that they were here, somebody asked for mutual aid help on a mutual aid board, but somebody else helped them right away. But what we did is we went in our kitchen, we found all the extra food, because I'm a little bit of a food keeper. I'm not going to use the H word. And we bagged it all up. And when we got into the kitchen, the first thing Zeki said, you guys, was, I'm not going to eat this meat, Mama. We can give this to these people. He had opened it though, so we couldn't, but it was like his favorite lunch meat. So I knew he took it seriously. The next day we ended up taking the food to the people's house. We never saw them. And when we dropped it off, Zeki said, I put the milk in the snow so it would stay cold for them in case they don't come out right away. And so mutual aid, and I don't want it to sound like this like creepy teaching moment, but I wanted my kids, and I said this to them, and it's the truth. When I didn't have money or resources, people brought us bags of food. People left us food. And now it's our turn to do that for other people. And so find your mutual aid pages, grab an extra thing of milk at the store if you can. If you're going to bring somebody mac and cheese, bring a mac, cheese, milk, butter, the whole 9 yards, because giving me a box of mac and cheese when I don't have any milk or butter doesn't serve me. If I bring you Kool-Aid, I got to bring you sugar. All of those things. So all of it is to say mutual aid and community compassion and community care are what's going to get us to what's next. Absolutely, for me. And I'll stop talking and just say I love you all and I appreciate this space.
I do too. And I really appreciate the different ways of showing up that, I think as you use, one of the things that we hear sometimes is, we're doing too much social action and not enough spiritual development. And social action is spiritual development, and there is no one without the other. And showing up in politics is spiritual development, and showing up in our communities is spiritual development. And we have to reframe how we're looking at that. And I know locally, Charlottesville, which is where I do my community organizing, is it's very intense place, after A11 and A12. And so we're looking at next week, how we're going to show up as a faithful presence is to stock our mutual aid space. So we're going to have a drive-by drop off so that people can drive by and drop off diapers and formula and menstrual products and food. And so we're going to stock up our mutual aid space so that people feel like there is a way that they can contribute and understand that it's not just about showing up and putting your life on the line, although that does need to happen as well, but that there are different ways of showing up. And so I just invite folks to find what that way is for you next week and make that happen. What is your Unitarian Universalist way of showing up next week, and make that happen? And we'll check in with you all next Thursday and see what that is. That's the accountability portion, and we'll tell you how it went with us. Thank you all for joining us today. We will see you next week, same time, same bat channel. Take care, all.